I thought it'd be really helpful for me to just hop on here quickly, share a resource with you guys that I could have sworn I've shared in the group before, but maybe not. So I'm going to walk you through it and how you can use this tool to get an accurate representation of your partner's semen analysis. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, perfect. So I'll actually post the link for this in the comments of the video because this is a really great, helpful tool. Okay, so yeah, I'll scroll through it and then I will share the link with you guys. So what this is just a really basic look at some literature papers around the decline in male fertility and also the World Health Organization recommendations from a normal / optimal range. So basically, I'm going to show you where the reference ranges come from for the semen analysis and why they suck. So bear with me for 1 second. Let's just go through this part really quickly first. So we can see here, this graph is on sperm concentration. This paper is really old, 1992, but I can guarantee you the trend has continued. So we can see from 1940 to 1990, things have drastically declined from a concentration standpoint. Average concentration used to be well up over 100 million per milliliter. Now we're working with about 70 back in 1990. It's not 1990 anymore. So if we're going to continue on this trend, we're now looking probably down here to between 30 and 40 million per milliliter, which I feel very, very confidently saying that that's likely accurate in terms of average. That's definitely the average that I see in private practice and when I'm reviewing essays for clients. So I would not be surprised if they were to repeat this study now that this line continues on down here. So we see an average concentration decrease from 113 million to 66 million between 1940 and 1990. That's 50%. That's over 50% of a decline. And we just kind of, the World Health Organization, who set parameters for reference ranges, it's based on population average. It's not based on optimal. It's not based on where your body should actually be for success. And this isn't just semen analysis. This goes for all lab parameters. It's based on population average. So why would we now accept, let's say it's 1990 and we accept 66 million per milliliter as the normal when, my math is bad, 50 years ago, we were double that and that was normal. So taking that a part of it, that's a drastic decline in our population. Why is that happening? Environmental factors, poor lifestyle choices, more stress for sure. But that's not what we're talking about today. There's older videos on all of those things. We see this again in this is that same study. So it shows the concentration and also shows fluid volume actually decreasing and count actually decreasing as well. So the World Health Organization is what determines normal values based on data, based on population average. Over time, these values have decreased, and this is due to an overall decline in male fertility. So what we're seeing as given as normal in our reference ranges aren't necessarily optimal. So this paper is from 2010, not that old, but definitely could be updated. I'm not familiar with how often they update these things. This is the one I have. This is the one that I go by. So what they looked at were men whose partners did become pregnant within 12 months of stopping contraceptive. So within a year of actively trying to get pregnant, all of the men in this study did actually achieve pregnancy. So what we are looking at is their values basically. And we're seeing them broken down into percentiles. So 50th percentile is basically saying if they're in the 50th percentile, 50% of men had higher numbers, 50% of men had lower numbers than them, basically giving you a 50-50 shot, essentially. So you're like average, right in that midline. Granted, yes, all of these men did get their partner pregnant. They don't actually disclose like the men in the 2.5 percentile, like did they do IVF? There's really no declaration as to how they got pregnant, but we just know the 50th percentile is midline. If it were me, / it was me 4 years ago, and back then and still now and with my clients, I want more than a 50-50 shot every single cycle. I want 100% shot, but the truth of the matter is there's no one out there with like bomb sperm like that. So we want to be like above the 50th percentile. So when we look at the 50th percentile, we're seeing, I always ignore total sperm number just because assays, semen analysis don't actually give us that value. They give us concentration, so count per milliliter, and the 50th percentile is 73. So you can remember back from the graph above that in 1990, 66 was about the average. And if we extrapolated that line down, the average now is probably between 30 and 40, which would actually probably correlate with this pretty good, but we're seeing 73 on this graph being the 50th percentile. So when I'm working with a client, working with someone in private practice, I want to see count at least above 50 million per milliliter, if not above 70. And I've seen it change and get to that level for sure, but I have not seen a lot of semen analysis that they're already there. I have for sure. There's some men out there with great sperm, and that's fantastic. But for the most part, they're in that 30 million per mil range, and we want to double that essentially. When we're looking at motility, in that 50th percentile, we're looking at 61%. So for me, optimal is about 60% progressive forward motility. So some assays will actually break that down for you, what that looks like. And what I'll go through what the World Health Organization normals are after actually. So we want that. I think the optimal is technically 66. I like it to be above 60. That's where I want it to be. I know it's above the 50th percentile, and I feel confident about that. The progressive forward motility, 55. So yeah, I like 60. So I like that motility to be above 60. The normal forms, so I'm just going to ignore these ones because again, most assays don't actually give you this much detail. Normal forms percentage can be given to you on the document as morphology, and it might say normal forms, it might say abnormal forms. It's so annoying as a practitioner that there's no gold standard. Every clinic has their own way to report, every lab has their own way to report. So I'm sometimes having to dig through and like figure out what the heck is going on. But ideally, from an optimal standpoint, we want at least, I like at least 10% normal. Above 15% is the 50th percentile or above. So these are the numbers that are giving you a good 50-50 shot, and higher is what we want to look at. Now, what we're actually comparing this to when it comes to what the World Health Organization, what fertility clinics have deemed as normal, is actually between the 5th and 10th percentile. So what you'll see in the reference ranges on your documents is a concentration higher than 15 to 20 is usually what I see. Some clinics do 15, some clinics do 20. If you're 15 and let's say you're 17 million per milliliter and they give you the, oh yeah, everything looks good, you're A-okay, you're actually in the 5th percentile, which means 95% of men have better sperm concentration than you. That's crappy. Like, we want that to be a lot higher. We want you to be 4 times that, if not more. So if you have been told at 15, 20, 25 million sperm per milliliter that things are good, question that. You can do so much better. And this is where getting men involved in prenatal care and in fertility care is so, so important, because so often I'm seeing the men being left out of the equation when in actual fact, we're not dealing in optimal levels at all, not even close. So this is the big one from a count standpoint. This is a huge difference. And you have a much better chance of getting pregnant naturally if you have count numbers higher than 70 million per milliliter. If you are within the 5 million to 15 million range, they're likely going to recommend IUI, and the chances of getting pregnant naturally are going to be very, very slim, less than 5%. And if you're lower than 5 million, they're likely pushing for IVF. But there are things you can do and things you can change. And like I said, I'm not going to go through treatment, but there's older videos on that. And it is definitely something we do talk about inside the fertility confidence method. It's not just for women, the men are involved as well. And there's a lot of training in there from that aspect. So if that is something that interests you, please book a clarity call. Happy to chat more with you about that. From a motility standpoint, typically I'm seeing, oh, let me grab it because I actually think it's lower than 40 that I usually see. 30, yeah. So I usually see the reference range as anything greater than 30. Not a huge difference. I mean, double, like I said, 60. So I'd like it to be at 60. It doesn't seem as drastic when we're not talking about millions. But yeah, again, 30 between the 2.5 and 5th percentile, meaning a heck of a lot more dudes have better swimmers than you do. And when we're looking at morphology, it's typically anything greater than 4% normal is what they want. Morphology, I look at a little bit differently. They do usually break down what abnormal forms they're talking about. If there's more head and acrosomal defects, I'm a lot more concerned about that because obviously the head is way more important in terms of the burrowing, and the acrosomal reaction to actually get in and fertilize the egg is very, very important. But anytime this number is 4 or below, we're treating for morphology. And like I said, I like this to be above 15. I'm a little bit less concerned if it's in that like 6 to 15 range, really, to be honest with you, as long as everything else is good. But typically if we're seeing suboptimal morphology, we're also seeing suboptimal motility and suboptimal count. And when we're treating all of these things. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm just going to quickly check over. I am going to post the link for this document so you guys can actually have access to this to review if you have had a semen analysis done. And I'll also post the link for the clarity calls. If this is something that interests you, if you're ready to get a plan and some help on your fertility journey, I'm here for you. Let's hop on a call. Let's make sure it's a good fit for you moving forward, and I can give you more information about that. So I will post the link in the comments. If you have any questions, tag me, and I will talk to you guys later.